David Shaw here with another off-the-record story. If you want to learn more about Washington, D.C., come visit my site, offtherecordtours.com. Let's go. I am so happy to be back at one of my favorite D.C. sites, Washington National Cathedral, for what I hope is the first of many episodes from this grand place. Now, when you come to a church service, you should expect to hear a sermon. And the sight of sermons given here is imposing. Sermons are delivered from a pulpit. Pulpit comes from the Latin word pulpetum, meaning a stage or platform. And the Canterbury pulpit here has been the stage for some great preachers. The Tibetan Buddhist spiritual leader, the Dalai Lama, preached here, as did the Reverend Billy Graham, a leading American evangelist of his time. So did Anglican Archbishop Desmond Tutu, a leader of South Africa's anti-apartheid movement. But the greatest preacher ever to set foot in the Canterbury pulpit was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King in 1968.
I must say this morning that racial injustice is still the black man's burden and the white man's shame. It is an unhappy truth that racism is a way of life for the vast majority of white Americans, spoken and unspoken, acknowledged and denied, subtle and sometimes not so subtle. The disease of racism permeates and poisons a whole body politic. And I can see nothing more urgent than for America to work passionately and unrelentingly get rid of the disease of racism.
This was to be King's last Sunday sermon. Days after delivering it, he was assassinated. King's sermon is commemorated with this sculpture in the north aisle. Now, when people stand in the Canterbury pulpit, they are dwarfed by the size of the thing. It's big and in a big space. But look at the King sculpture. He overwhelms the pulpit. His message, his ministry is bigger than any earthly stage. Bishop Henry Satterley was responsible for building the cathedral, which is an Episcopal church. Satterley wanted something in his new cathedral to connect it to his denomination's old roots in the Church of England. So he asked the Archbishop of Canterbury if perhaps there was some stone left over from recent repairs to the Bell Harry Tower at Canterbury Cathedral in England. Canterbury Cathedral is sort of the mother church of the Anglican Communion, of which the Episcopal Church is a part. The Archbishop said yes, in fact, he had some stone lying around, and Satterley was welcome to it. The stone was used to make the intricately carved pulpit. On the front is a depiction of an unhappy King John being forced to sign Magna Carta, a document that for the first time took power from a king and moved it to the people. This was a precursor to our own Constitution. By the way, if you want to see a copy of the Magna Carta, stop by the National Archives downtown and see this copy from 1297. Other carved figures include the historian the Venerable Bede, dictating on his deathbed a translation of John's Gospel into Anglo-Saxon. And Bishop William Tyndale, shown here being burned at the stake after getting sideways with King Henry VIII for translating and printing the Bible in English. Whether you come to hear a sermon or take in the beauty of this place, Washington National Cathedral is a must-see when you visit Washington. And as a certified cathedral guide, I'm happy to give you a tour. As always, if you have an idea for a future episode, let me know in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe. Well, I hope you enjoyed that off-the-record story. If you want to learn more about Washington, D.C., things seen and unseen, arrange your tour of your nation's capital at offtherecordtours.com. Until then, I'm David Shaw.